You are listening to the Spiritual Warrior Coach with Barbara Savin, the podcast for discovering how powerful your wisdom, compassion, and courage is. Get ready to join Barbara and her guests as they explore and offer you advice on how to reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. And now, here's the host of the show, Barbara Savin.
Thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I am your host, Barbara Savin, and I am here to help you reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. I am a certified and clinical medical hypnotherapist, Reiki master and teacher, energy healing specialist, life coach, and best-selling author of Gentle Energy Touch, The Beginner's Guide to Hands-On Healing. I have been helping my clients for over 35 years, and the older I get, the more wisdom seems to come through. So isn't it time that you believe in yourself? Your mind is going to provide you with your greatest challenges in life because it's so very, very powerful. So let's use it for positive thinking, creating harmony, balance, peace, love, happiness, and anything else that your heart desires, because one day the world will tap you on your shoulder and say, this is your time to shine. And speaking about shining, I'm going to bring my guest on right now. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well and happy to be here, Barbara.
Oh, well, I'm so honored to have you come. Let me tell my listeners about you. This is Dr. Shani Fox, and she has stepped up over and over again to help cancer survivors through their greatest challenges, including taming their fears of recurrence, repairing devastated relationships, and making the most of the life that they survive for. Bringing her unique expertise as both a holistic physician and certified life mastery coach, she has impacted countless survivors with her life-changing workshops and warm personal presence. Dr. Shani is the author of the Cancer Survivor's Fear First Aid Kit and is a popular speaker and podcast guest for survivor communities. And her posts and articles have been published in the Huffington Post, Breast Cancer Wellness magazines, and the peer-reviewed Natural Medicine Journal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you today?
Very, very well. Thank you.
Wow. So how long have you been a naturopathic physician? And how did that all start for you?
Well, that was a big change, becoming a naturopathic physician, because I worked in the area of financial operations before that.
Oh,
I was an accountant working in financial operations. So it was a midlife change. I simply arrived at a day when I realized that I needed to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up in my 40s. Up until that point, I had made decisions from a very, very practical standpoint. And so I went to accounting, and it was very good to me from a practical standpoint. I raised my kids and sent them to college, and all was good from that point of view. But once they were out of the house, I began to look at my life and say, I'm working essentially with paper and money here. And even though I'm doing well, I really want to get back to people. And it was just a question of what that would look like. So I had actually wanted from an early age to be a doctor, and I'd given that idea up for reasons that at that point no longer made sense. And so I decided, well, this is my chance. And that's what I did. I picked up and did some prerequisites while I was working full time, and found my way to naturopathic medical school here in Portland, Oregon.
wow,
That's the direction I've taken ever since.
That's it. And now I know that you help people that are diagnosed with cancer.
Yes.
What made you go into that field?
As I came out of school and began to practice, cancer patients and survivors simply found their way to me. It's partly because natural medicine has a lot to offer. The conventional care system is very, very focused on medical treatment, which they need to do, of course. And what's overlooked, though, in that equation is recovery, and then what happens from there on. Recovery is a major deal after cancer treatment, after cancer itself. People need support very often, both physically and emotionally at that time. And so I noticed that gap. I noticed that, and based on my medical training, I was supporting people's bodies. Their bodies would get well. Everybody would look at them and say, "You look terrific," which they did. And they could not believe that they were well. Their mindset was out of sync with where they actually were physically. So I saw this often enough to realize that this is a significant issue, that something is going on in the mental sphere that is preventing people from believing that they're well now, that they're going to remain well, and therefore from living their lives, because they always feel like there's another shoe about to drop.
Well, do you feel that they really need to think positive and clear out those thoughts of the cancer?
The brief answer to that, Barbara, is no.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it's not so much about positivity. Again, I say to people, if you're having a great day, if things look positive, we'll go with it. Of course, enjoy it. Let's live into positive as much as we can. But the fact of the matter is that life during and beyond cancer is not always positive. People coming out of treatment are often frequently fatigued, frequently not feeling well. They often have a lot of residual symptoms. And then you have all the mental and emotional issues that I alluded to earlier. So sometimes life sucks during and beyond cancer, to be honest. Yeah. And we never want to be, never want to be in denial that there are days like that. So my key word is, as opposed to positive, is authentic. Let's look at what's authentic for you in any given day. If things are really not great, let's say so. Let's simply acknowledge the feeling. Now, we don't want to get stuck there. That's for sure. But we never want to deny that this can happen. And so that's my sort of North Star as I work with people, is let's find what's authentic for you. And to the extent that there are issues, to the extent that you are not enjoying your life fully as you could, let's identify the issues, work our way forward from there. And of course, I give people all kinds of tools that they can then get back in charge and create the kind of life that they'd like to have, including an emotional tone, which is nourishing for them.
Do you also help their spouses or loved ones? Because I know they go through a lot with them.
They do indeed. They do indeed. And of course, there's nothing really in the way we're raised or the way we're socialized that helps us deal with that. People often don't even know what to say to a person who's been through cancer. It starts with that, not to mention what to do, how to fit in. There's a lot of disconnects, therefore, even people who mean well, for sure. But for example, I don't know how many times I've heard cancer survivors say that when I finished treatment, everybody thought I was done.
Yes.
And they, now go live your life. Well, that's a lot easier said than done. First of all, they are not done. They know that very well. No, there's so many ramifications from having had cancer and having been through cancer treatment. It needs to be acknowledged and dealt with. And people simply don't realize, and they're trying to be positive, and say, well, let's just get back to normal. And things, it takes a while to recalibrate. And by the way, even normal is not an easy word to define once you've had cancer. Life looks different. You are a different person after cancer.
Well, that's it. So I would assume then the issues that they face as they come out of, their treatments are probably extremely challenging. For most of them.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Let's think about it. I mean, not only a person. So actually, to me, this actually goes back to diagnosis. Cancer diagnosis more often than not happens as a surprise. People sometimes have symptoms, but not always. And or the symptoms that they had, let's say they notice their energy had been getting lower and lower for a year, but nobody really goes and says, oh, that might be cancer. It's not always cancer, but right. Sometimes that's the only sign that a person has had, that something is not quite right. And so the diagnosis itself comes as a bit of a shock, and a bit of, sorry, that was a figure of speech. It comes as a shock. And then the system, more often than not, then funnels them straight into treatment without any time to even digest what just happened.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of there's a shock that happens right at the beginning of the process, which does not get processed right away. People go in, yes, they need to do their treatment. I'm not, I don't mean to interfere with any of that, but emotionally, this is very difficult. So it gets stuffed for a while as people simply bring to the table what the strength and the resilience they need just to get through this thing. And it's still hanging out when people come out of treatment, that shock. They have not dealt with it. So they've got that accumulated, plus the new challenges of this life that lies before them, which is all kinds of things. And let's think about it. At that point, some people, if you've had surgery, you may be missing body parts. Sometimes it's body image, if it's a part that is visible to the outside world. Someone has this body image issues. There's another consequence that is often not recognized. So this system that we have that funnels people straight into treatment right away, very structured, exactly where to show up and who's going to be there, et cetera. And then when people get out of it, the structure is gone. The support is gone.
Right.
That they've had for weeks and sometimes months. So they're not only are things very different in the world, but they don't know who to turn to because the oncology team is on to the next patient. They're back into treatment again with the next person. So beyond treatment, the world is very, very challenging, very murky, very confusing, very overwhelming sometimes.
So their emotions really play havoc on them. I would have during them hearing that they have this. Yes. Then during the whole, chemo or whatever treatment that they go to, then they come home and they still don't understand. I think, everything that has happened to them.
Indeed, yes. So there's a lot of processing that has to happen. What's happened up till now, and then of course what's going to happen from here on out.
So in actuality, there isn't much, you could say, support for these people.
That's certainly been the case up until now. Now, there is an increasing body of research that's demonstrating these issues, that these issues exist. The biggest of which, or at least the most, I would say the most common of which is fear. People sort of just push through what they need to during treatment, and then they come out and it's like, what do I need to do to keep that from happening again?
Yeah.
And they could be in great shape physically, doing very well physically, but this fear can overwhelm them. And it's demonstrated by research, this has no connection whatsoever to the severity or the extent of the cancer that they had. Oh. So, I mean, if a person has stage 4, they may very well experience this or not, but they may have had a very, very early stage, let's say breast cancer, one of the most common cancers. The very early stage breast cancer is very often curable, these days, thank heavens, right? Treatments have gotten better and better. And yet that person may be no less fearful than the person who was diagnosed with a stage 4. So there's really no correlation. This fear actually, per research, affects 70% of cancer survivors on a persistent basis. The vast majority of them are struggling with this at one level or another.
Well, I would assume someone that is diagnosed with stage 4 knows that this could be the end of their life.
Well, any cancer brings up these fears of end of life. That's, of course, what's behind the fear ultimately. And, even if a person has the best possible outcome, that they're doing well, the fear still could exist because they have faced the possibility of their mortality in the near future.
Now, do you think energetically the fear could stop them from healing? I know that's a far-off question.
It's absolutely, well, I mean, it's hard to draw, we can't prove this, but it absolutely could be a contributor. Fear, of course, is a biologically wired emotion. We're wired to feel fear for good reasons in certain circumstances, right? To get out of the way of traffic, right? But fear can be kicked in, as you're an energy healer, of course, but for our listeners' sake, fear can be kicked in by even our imaginations. So something which does not exist as a real threat to us in the world, our imagination can kick it in. That's the brilliance and a challenge for human beings, is that we have these great imaginations. We can picture all kinds of things that can be created, but fear is one of them. And so yes, people can create a fear for themselves, which has then hormonal consequences and neurotransmitter consequences. So we create a biological state within our body, if we're fearful, that is not healthy for us. Not just cancer-wise, but in terms of any kind of chronic disease. Fear contributes biologically to it if we live in it
We live in it.
More often than not, yes. So even for biological reasons, we would want people to, and health reasons, physical health reasons, we would want people to learn to manage their fear.
So do you feel that then maybe some of them may need some mental health help?
Well, in some way, shape, or form, yes. And when we say mental health help, you know, that often means going to a therapist. And I bless all the therapists; they do enormous work in the world. And at the same time, therapy is under the same model as our medical model. It's looking for diagnoses, and it for reasons that, well, for lots of reasons. Once we have a diagnosis, then there's often a treatment for diagnosis. So what happens is people will be diagnosed with anxiety or depression, which, by the way, may very well be present. If a person is in fear all the time, they're going to be, look like a person with anxiety, of course. So that it's not that that's an improper diagnosis. The problem is what we do about it. And medication, which is often a direction that the mental health world will go, it may help take the edge off things. And I have no problem with it as a short-term tool to help people who are not functioning otherwise, to take, for example, anti-anxiety medication. But as I often say, there is not a pill in the world that can cure fear.
Right. I know. So
it's not going to the root of the problem. So what needs to happen is we need to get at the root of why. I mean, we know the external circumstance which triggered this fear, sure.
Right. Well, of course. Yeah.
Yes. But, given that that's something that we can influence how healthy we are, but we can't ultimately control cancer. I mean, even very healthy people get cancer. So it's not fair that way. And there's something uncontrollable about it. So what we have to do is go to the person's spirit and psychological makeup and look at why they are so subject to fear, why fear is allowed to run rampant in their lives, because fear is, we can't get rid of it, given that it's biological, but we can manage it. We can learn to get back in charge when it shows up. And so that's the gist of the work that I do.
Ah, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Because fear is a tough one.
Fear is a very tough one.
Yeah, fear, forgiveness, acceptance,
Yes.
all that is, it actually sometimes holds people back from truly healing.
Yes, I agree with you.
Right, they can't get past it.
Yes.
Especially forgiveness. I had two friends. They both passed away. They both had the same type of breast cancer. One said she would never forgive her father, and she will die, with this hatred in her heart. The other one also had the same type of upbringing and dad, but she found it in her heart to forgive him. And I mean, evidently it was their both journeys. One passed away just a few months later, and the other one lived 30 more years.
Yeah. It's not at all impossible that things like this affect our healing journey. Not at all impossible. Yeah, forgiveness is huge. And what people often don't recognize, people who have been dealing with forgiveness issues, which, by the way, is at some point in life, as most of us.
Yeah.
People dealing with forgiveness issues very often don't realize that forgiveness is not saying what the other person did is okay, or I accept what the other person did. Forgiveness actually has nothing to do with that. If they did something egregious, then it was egregious. If it was evil, it was evil. Or at least this is the way I've come to think about it, but I see that it makes sense, and it makes sense for the people that I work with. It's not about the other person. Forgiveness is about learning, as you know, to release our own energy out of the situation.
Exactly.
To say, I will no longer invest any more of my own energy or emotions in that person who offended me in some way. And so it's really, ultimately, the benefits of forgiveness are not about the other person. They're for us.
They're for us.
Yes. And so it's when we can simply be at peace. Yes, that happened, but that does not have to color my life. I will not allow it, in fact, to color my life. I will choose the emotional tone of my life and the way I want to live, and not let that rain cloud hang over me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because that really, it keeps us living in the past and not in the moment, I want to say.
Exactly. Or allow us to even really create the future that we want. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now, you help cancer patients all the time. How do you actually help them lift themselves out of the struggle mode that they're going through?
So I am a holistic physician, and then later, after I was a physician, I went back and certified as a life coach, because I found that the tools of life coaching were very useful for these situations that I was seeing in my patients. Coaching being very present and future oriented. Whereas therapy, again, God bless the therapist, but a lot of the model of therapy is about the past.
Yes.
The past, we only talk about it to the extent that we just need to get to know somebody, what they're dealing with. But then the real question is, what are you going to do about it now?
Yeah.
We have compassion for the suffering of the past, but we cannot stay there. We have to decide now what choices we're going to make about it in order to determine the kind of future we're going to have. So that's the world, the arena in which I'm able to work with people, is using life coaching techniques. But really, the way it's oriented in terms of cancer survival, life coaching works for a lot of different issues in life,
Right.
for a lot of different populations. But in terms of cancer survivors, and even current cancer patients, the crux of the coaching is about helping people recognize the power that's within them. I'm sure you do work that's parallel to this using your own modality. Think about it. What does it take to get through cancer? Wow. A lot of strength, a lot of wisdom, a lot of resilience.
Yes.
And people find these resources within themselves sometimes during a cancer journey. They never even knew they had that kind of strength. And so what I do with them is help them recognize these resources that they've already got, that they've actually been using, albeit under those particularly difficult circumstances. And now we get to use those same resources. We get to leverage them when you don't actually have cancer hanging over your head. Let's bring that to your life. And with your own power, take your power to choose how you want life to be for yourself.
And that's so important. And people some of them really do not understand that true power that is within them. Yes.
And life, I'm sure you have a story like this too, that, you must have at some point recognized that you've got the power to choose. We cannot control all the circumstances that happen to us. And some of them are very difficult and tragic. But we always have a choice of how we respond. And this is paramount in life after cancer, for helping people get back to the life that really feels good to them under their new circumstances.
And do you feel that not just for cancer survivors, but it's actually good for majority of everyone?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is a key to living a good life, no matter who you are. It's just that, cancer survivors have a particular set of circumstances that not all of us deal with. So it's important to understand their particular, the particular issues, but in terms of my own career. But, I feel like this is what I did when I changed careers. Not everybody in their 40s is willing to lay down a career, which, whether or not it was ultimately satisfying, it was nevertheless, well-paying and, great benefits and all those sorts of things. People are often very unwilling to lay that down if their soul isn't happy with it, and then try for something new, go for something new. Just one example, people, of course, being divorced all the time. People who take up their power after divorce, their lives look very different from the ones who remain victims to the suffering of the divorce, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with all of life's issues that could throw at us.
Oh, it's very important to not remain a victim.
Yes.
So important, because there's always tomorrow, and don't be a victim of what has happened to you in the past, because then you stay in that energy. And I feel it's challenging then to move, well, besides moving forward, but actually to heal.
Yes.
We may not heal from the physical illness, but hopefully we understand, on a maybe emotional and mental, spiritual level, why maybe something has happened to us.
Although why may never get answered. Why is a tricky question. Sometimes, we can get insights about that, and that's fine, of course, if we do. But the greater question is, or the way I put it to people and myself sometimes is, okay, this has happened to me. Now, what do I do?
What do you do?
Yeah. So I'd rather come to acceptance, though the why may or may not ever become clear. But, any insights we have around that we can use to help us make our choice. Oh, I realize, you mentioned forgiveness before. If I recognize that my life has been marred by a failure to forgive up until now, I have the choice as to what to do about that. And you illustrated that some people do and some people don't. It's always, everybody's an individual and they get to choose, but knowing I have the power and recognizing, oh, this is an area of my life where, I really haven't been happy around this. So this is a good place to invest some energy to see if I can transform this. So I have peace around that and get to use the energy that I was holding on to and something in the past with. I can use that to enhance my new life.
Right, exactly. So do you feel that helps them actually to heal on a certain
level? Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't heal if they have more peace in their life, more love in their life, which, is also something that I help people with. You mentioned in my introduction, people's relationships can be devastated by cancer.
Yes.
We all know somebody who's had cancer and they'll say, oh, some people showed up above and beyond. I couldn't believe it, which is, of course, wonderful. And the same people can often say, but somebody that I expected to show up didn't. All of a sudden went missing in action. And, they don't know what to do with that. The other person doesn't know what to do with that, actually. That's part of the reason they didn't show up.
But that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can have compassion all around. I mean, generally, most often this is not done willfully, but people are, all of us to some degree, we're not taught, so we're unskillful in these things, and sometimes we can't handle it, therefore. So, learning how to repair those situations, if the person wants to repair them. I mean, not everything is worth salvaging, but if it's worth salvaging, then rebuilding that relationship from that broken place. These are all things that contribute to healing.
Do you find that whether it's a female or male that say is diagnosed with cancer, the spouse is like completely lost and doesn't know what to do?
Well, hopefully it's not a completely lost situation. I mean, if they are spouses and they have some, they feel some care, they want to care for the other person. They want to be of support to the other person. So very often the will is there. It's simply the skills needed to go from the will to do it to doing it in a way that's supportive of the person who's in the situation. Yeah, so there's all kinds of skills that can be learned there, and given that a person's willing, the skills are not that difficult to learn, really.
So is that something that you help them with also?
Oh yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not just the person with cancer; it's also either the children or husband, spouse, mother, father.
Yes, the people in support. Yes, to the extent that they want support. Yes, I support them as well. Absolutely.
How long does the average person say, if a wife is diagnosed with cancer and the husband tries to help, do they actually begin to accept the fact that this person has it, or are they sometimes in denial?
Denial happens, as you know.
Yeah.
Denial happens. I recently heard this described, this process described according to Kubler-Ross's stages of grief. Which have been around for a long time. They're well proven. Of course, denial is one of those early stages that we're faced with something that we can't handle, that's causing us some sort of suffering. And we can get angry about it, and we can go into denial for a while, that this shouldn't happen to me. This just doesn't, I'm going on without, thinking about this, trying to push through. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. These are the things that we have to allow. Her process, of course, was around grief. So we have to allow the grief to happen. We have to allow the sadness to happen. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. In fact, it would be normal in this situation to do such a thing.
Exactly.
Right. And then once that has been acknowledged, which is the opposite of the denial, then we can work our way towards acceptance, which again doesn't mean I accept that the rest of my life is shot. What it means is I accept that this is where I find myself now. This is where I am. Okay, I have had a diagnosis. It's real.
Right.
And now, I've been saying, now I take that into account and take back my power and choose forward. So there are some parallels here that, yes, denial can certainly happen in early stages. And if that's persisting, then we want to address that.
Okay. And even like if the spouse is in denial, that say the wife has, so it would be a type of grieving, I would assume.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's ultimately where it comes from. The denial, whichever spouse is in denial is grief. There's a sadness and a confusion there, most likely, that they don't want to face. They don't want to face. And so they do all kinds of things on the surface to try to work around it, including pretending it's not there. But ultimately, the person who has the cancer, they feel in their flesh what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
The spouse doesn't have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So to the extent that the spouse is in denial, it's going to drive a wedge between them, because the person who's in the situation cannot deny. They can certainly deny some of the psychological aspects, but they cannot deny the physical reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to deal with it. So the spouse, to the extent the spouse is in denial, this can very well drive a wedge between them. And so, we find couples, cancer often, well, I don't say often, but it's not uncommon that cancer is compounded by divorce because the spouses grew apart in some way. They could not both handle this together. Cancer requires teamwork.
It does.
In some way, shape, or form. It might be spouses, it could be friends, it could be siblings, whoever it is that's around you as your support team. It takes a village. It's another one that takes a village.
Oh, I know. It takes a lot of support.
Yes.
I mean, I've been through that with my mom and a lot of my friends. And then recently, my uncle, he passed away from pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one.
My condolences on your uncle. Yes, my father passed of pancreatic cancer as well. Yeah,
that's
it's a very hard one.
That's a hard one. As much as you want to support them and do everything in your power, that's I think on all levels that's very challenging.
Absolutely, no denying that. Pancreatic cancer, because it is usually more often than not diagnosed very late. Mm-hmm. When a person is, in fact, usually in stage 4, the therapies at that stage are not very effective, unfortunately. So the chances of survival are much lower than many other kinds of cancer. And so that requires a particular kind of support. Because yes, of course, we'll always hold the vision that the person could make it through. There's no harm in doing that. We hold that desire, and yet the reality is darker than for many other kinds of cancer. So the question is, what becomes the kind of support that's helpful in that situation? Cheering, you're going to make it, you're going to make it. The person knows that that's not probable.
It's not probable. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's one thing in a cancer that's more curable. Of course, nice to have a cheering section, but when you have a cancer that's devastating like this one, the proper support is most likely not, you're going to make it, you're going to make it. It looks different, and that requires some soul searching for people to put forth some other kind of support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know for myself, all I was able to do is just be there for him. And, there were times where he would ask me, when he was in the hospital, he would call me and say, am I going to be okay? Mm. But I knew what he meant by, am I going to be okay? Because he knew he was already dying. Yeah. And so I had said to him, my Uncle Barry, actually, you're going to be just fine. You're going to go home and you will be healed, and you'll see everybody. You'll be with everybody again.
Yes. And because I know you have a very broad view of what that means, then there was truth in that. There was truth in that. Yes. Home. It.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And if it brought it him to acceptance, then that was a great gift. A great gift. Yeah. Yeah. And as you mentioned, presence is, that is the ultimate gift.
Yeah.
Presence, just be with and where the person is without trying to convince them they should be somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I knew what he was talking. And then the next day he
Yes.
passed away. But
Mm,
I
how
knew
beautiful.
what he was, his wording to me. I knew
Yes.
exactly why,
Yes.
he asked me that. And so
Yes.
it actually helped me feel better,
Mhm.
to an extent. I mean, it's still a loss. And I think he, at the end, he said to me, I love you and thank you for that. So
Beautiful. Just
yeah.
beautiful.
So
Yes.
I knew we were good. We were
Yeah.
good.
So yes, exactly. You joined him where he was
Mm-hmm.
without being unrealistic,
Mm-hmm.
and you brought him comfort. That there's nothing better than that. Who wouldn't want, if it turns out to be our last moments, then who wouldn't want to be
Yeah.
with somebody who loves them and feeling
And
comfort?
feeling comfortable. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was, and I think he also felt safe at that point.
Yes. Yes. And think about it, safety at the moment, or the moments before dying, that's something we don't usually associate those two things, right?
No, we don't.
No, no. But in terms of the spiritual and emotional aspect of it, a lot of safety can be created. And I celebrate you for creating that for your uncle.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I did that for my mom also.
Mhm.
Uh, she was one that never wanted me to do healing on her, even though her
Mm.
mother was the healer.
Mhm.
But the night before she passed away, she asked me to do healing.
Ah,
And when
interesting.
I sat with her, I said to her, we can't have, help you in any way with the situation, but all I can, help you with is to feel again safe and
Mhm.
calm and peaceful and know that everything will be just fine.
Mhm.
And then
Yes.
again, I thought she passed the next day.
Yes.
So sometimes it's just the words, not the, oh my God, you're dying, because some people get that so emotional, and I can understand that with the
Mhm.
crying and everything else. But
Yes.
I feel then it makes it worse for that person, laying in their bed.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. They are, yeah, they're not in a place where they should have to take the responsibility or even be um, bothered, I don't know, by the emotions, by high emotions of everybody else around them.
Everybody else around them.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that if a person, if for anybody who's going to visit a person who's in those last stages, and if they feel their emotions high, sometimes just sitting and breathing and being in silence with a person is plenty. That is presence. And you don't have to talk a lot. You don't.
Exactly.
Or if the person is talking to you, then just respond to them where they're at. But let them take the lead, in other words. But we don't have to force ourselves into these uncomfortable situations, which make our own emotional turmoil worse. We don't have to do that. We don't have to do that.
Yeah, and I for one truly understand that because of my own personal experiences with
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So now, the type of work that you do, well, the more I commend you for it, it's challenging being with cancer, survivors,
Yes.
because we want them to heal so much, and we want them to heal on all levels. Are most of the survivors successful at actually getting past, their emotions with this?
The detrimental emotions, yes, I would say yes. The most of them are very successful at making good progress with this. And my goal actually is to sort of hold their hand until they don't need it anymore. So they kind of graduate beyond, which is great. That's where we want them to be. So it's a matter of having the support and the structure that they need in order to learn skills that they need to be able to get back in charge. And very often you'll find people, yes, breathing easier, and that's because their life looks, they're more at peace with their life. They're struggling against aspects of their life anymore. They've learned to transform things so that they move easily within their own lives and within the circles of people that they
have
associate with. Yes.
So when someone is, say, diagnosed with cancer, is it better for them to see you right away or during their treatment, or?
I'm here for them whenever they need. I have worked with people during cancer treatment, which is a certain kind of fear. Sometimes it's about their about coping with life. Life can be very challenging with a lot of symptoms, with a lot of, reactions to treatment, for example. So sometimes it's about getting through that. And then once they're past that, they're not feeling like the immediate, like nausea and other things that can come with chemo. Then when they move beyond treatment, then there's another set of issues, and I help them there as well. So it can be anywhere on the journey. It's very interesting. I've had people come to me many years after their cancer treatment.
Oh.
And still be floundering. And so there's really no time limit for when what I offer it doesn't expire. It's appropriate at any stage of the journey to the extent that it's needed.
Now, do you sometimes help them with nutrition or?
I have helped people with nutrition in the past. That would be the holistic medical skills. And people enjoy that about me, that in addition to the emotional work that we do, should they have questions about those physical aspects of how to take care of themselves, I can help answer those, or at the very least bring them lots and lots of resources. There's more and more resources about that available, about good nutrition available. So I can help with that. And, often people can do a lot of that on their own, given some references, some good websites or good recipe books even. And there's some good ones out there.
Right. Yeah. Because I know nutrition plays a big part in some of it.
Sure. In all of it. In life in general, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, actually it does.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to take care of ourselves. So.
If we want to live a healthy and good life, fully functional, or as functional as we can be, yes, nutrition is going to play a huge role there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always say, this is the only body or temple that we live in, so you need to take care of it, because there's no refund or exchange. You can't get a refund. And you can't exchange it for anything else.
That's right. Good way to put it, Barbara. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, even for myself, years ago when I was working at a corporate, and then decided enough was enough, and went into the healing aspect and hypnotherapy full time. I realized for myself, this is my only body. I need to truly take care of me. Otherwise, who else is going to?
Yeah, well, I mean, to a certain extent, we take care of each other, but, ultimately it comes down to personal responsibility. Absolutely. Yes. And if we want to fully engage in life, then we need the physical capacity to do so. And, I see people around me already with, I can't walk very far because of my, feet, and I've got a hip that's deteriorating, and, thank God for hip replacements and things that give people their lives back. I mean, that's, I'm all in favor of people need it, but the stage of deterioration that people get to before that is painful it's painful for them. It's painful to watch. And of course they can't do a lot of the things that they would have loved to do, to travel places. I'm a dancer, life without dancing would be hard for me. So the people that I dance with, if your body's not letting you dance, this is a big difference in the quality of life, that sort of thing. Whatever it is a person wants to do, it's nice to be able to say, I can still do just about anything I want to. And so I support people in that.
Exactly. I know every morning when I get out of bed, number one, I'm very grateful my eyes open. So I know I have another day.
Yes,
but I'm just grateful for the fact that I can get myself out of bed, and of course, have a house over my, roof over my head, and clothes and everything else. But and the first thing I tell myself is, I am healthy. I am healthy. I am healthy. So that I want to begin my day with, like a positive mantra, you could say, and and also I say I am grateful and I am appreciative and things such as that. But that truly helps, I feel, when we can move through with gratitude.
Yes, gratitude is a huge skill. So, before we were talking about positive, well, like not everything is positive, but there's more positive in our lives than not, usually, even if something very difficult is going on. And so one of the things I work with people on is recognizing what is positive, what is working in their lives, and to give great gratitude for it, because that focuses us on what is good about life, even if we're still dealing with something very difficult. I'll even say things like, okay, yes, such and such body part is struggling right now with the cancer. and you're doing everything you can to take care of that. But let's look at what's working. Are your eyes working? Is your heart working? Your hands working? Think what life would be like if these things did not work.
Right.
They're working. We're not even thinking about it, but they're working all the time. And so let's give gratitude for what is working.
What is?
Yes. Yes. And that goes from physical body parts to any aspect of life. Yes. Gratitude is an enormously powerful practice.
I know when I teach energy healing, and I always tell people, look at your hands. And I ask them, what do your hands do for you? And actually our hands do everything for us, from cooking to cleaning to washing ourselves. I mean, you name it, the hands do it. But then they realize, wow, I've taken that for granted.
Yes.
Just what my hands do. Or I take for granted the fact that I can just take a deep breath in.
Yes.
And it's these little big things, you could say, that are so important.
Yes. Yes. And life feels more comfortable and happier when we realize all those things that are working on our behalf.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, because I had a hip replacement. I had a boating accident many years ago, and unfortunately it caused the situation where then I needed to get a hip replacement. And it was a struggle, the going and repairing it, and I needed a total hip replacement. And but then afterwards, I really appreciated more than ever the fact that I was able to walk. And it's funny how we take things for granted.
Yes. Yeah. Life brings us some the proverbial wake-up calls, doesn't it? In one way or another. And cancer, of course, is one of them.
Yeah, cancer is a big one.
Yeah. People, once they're through the initial struggle with treatment, very often they'll look back and say, I really woke up. Cancer really woke me up and realized, what life was all about, how precious life is, how precious every day is. And that will motivate them then to live life in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a delayed gift. Gift is also a fraught word with cancer survivors. We're not going to say cancer is a gift, but some of the lessons that we can learn after cancer are gifts.
Oh, yeah. It actually sometimes for some people becomes a new beginning.
Yes.
You're able to see things in a different way, like what you just said.
Yeah. It was a very interesting example in this regard. It was my father. So my father, yes, he did pass away from pancreatic cancer. He was 80 at the time, but he had a prior experience that that instilled this lesson in him. And when he was 52, he was hit by a car as a pedestrian.
Oh,
a very serious accident, nearly killed him. But he fortunately recovered and then lived these additional 28 years. And he lived life knowing it was precious, understanding that every day, like you said, when you wake up and you function, wow, what a gift that is. And so I had him as a role model. As an adult, I realized, that he really is not taking anything for granted. And so I learned sort of vicariously through him that, everything counts. Everything counts. Every way we spend our time, every encounter that we have with the human beings, these all count. These all count. There's no throwaways in life. No,
and I always say, don't waste that moment, because once that moment leaves you, you cannot get that moment back.
True. Very true.
And so it's so important to cherish what we do have, no matter what it is, big or small.
Yes. And so here's, so my father ultimately did pass away of cancer, but after having lived a big chunk of his life in full gratitude and appreciation. And, when we think about it, when people are afraid of dying, ultimately, it's usually about regrets for the way they're living. So to the extent that we can become conscious of how we're living, and then make any changes that we wish to make, then we simply have a lot less regrets. I believe my father died basically without regrets. And that's about the most blessed way a person can leave this earth, I think.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind, yes. And actually, even for myself, I say to myself, it's time to let go of all that doesn't serve me purpose, including any regrets or forgiveness or anything. You have to let it go so that I can live differently and more appreciative and grateful.
Yes, and when we let go, we make space for what's more important to us. So sometimes it's a little struggly to let go, but if we keep in mind what can happen after that, that this space could be occupied by something that really does lift us up, something really does nourish us, then it makes letting go easier and the way forward brighter.
It sure does. Let me tell you. Well, where can my listeners find you and contact you?
They can find me online at www.drshanifox.com, DRSHANIFOX.com. They can contact me there. I answer all inquiries personally. And then there's some of my writings there. Women who are survivors of cancer can join my Facebook group, Women Rising Beyond Cancer, if they choose. So that's a great way to get in touch with me, and I welcome questions and happy to talk to anybody who approaches me.
Okay, well, all that information will be on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you name
Beautiful.
it, it'll be there,
Yes.
so that anyone that needs you, and I do have some clients that I may actually, one in particular, refer to you. So, because she's having a little bit of a struggle.
I'll be honored to serve them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I also asked you where you were living. So,
yeah. Although my practice is virtual, I work with people all over the country in Canada.
Okay.
In my practice, even before Zoom was virtual, so I've been doing that since 2018, and so people can reach me from anywhere.
From anywhere. So just repeat your website again.
drshanifox.com.
Okay. Well, I cannot thank you enough for being a guest today, and thank you so much for the work that you do. I, for one, truly appreciate it, because I know how difficult it is for, cancer survivors and spouses and relationships and everything else. So I truly thank you with all my heart.
I'm honored to do this work, Barbara. It's very interesting. People will hear that I work with cancer patients and survivors, and they say, "Isn't that depressing?" And I say, "Couldn't be farther from the truth." It's actually inspiring. It's inspiring to see the wisdom and strength and resilience within people. So I'm honored to do the work that I do, and I'm honored to be here today with you, Barbara.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody today for listening. And again, a big thank you to Dr. Shani Fox. And I hope that you heard what you needed to hear. Again, thank you for listening, and visit me at my website, motivateyourlife.net. And please subscribe to this channel, the Spiritual Warrior Coach Podcast. I have amazing guests on here, including Dr. Fox. And I also have another YouTube channel, just my name, Barbara Savin. And there I have some meditations for sleep, relaxation, grounding, and getting in touch with your angels, and all things that you may find interesting. And for those of you that are maybe interested in learning energy healing, you could check out my book, Gentle Energy Touch, The Beginner's Guide to Hands-On Healing, on Amazon. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Fox, for being here today. And thank you for listening, and have a wonderful, week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.